what's the first thing we need to think about?
When I teach gardening classes, I tell people that they should start off considering their site, where they're going to put their garden.
Okay.
You want to have a relatively flat space, good southern and eastern exposures,
Okay.
and you don't want to have a tree to your south. You need to have at least 6 hours of good sunlight to grow most vegetables.
Okay, so once we found our site, what's the next step?
The first thing that I would always do before planting a garden is test the soil.
Okay.
And I send my soil tests to the University of Massachusetts Extension Department, which you can find on their UMass website.
Are there instructions on how to do a soil sample?
There are. The form that you print out that you would send in with your soil sample tells you exactly what you have to do. You take whatever size garden plot you're doing, and you're going to take 12 or 15 samples from different areas.
Just dig up a little bit?
Dig up little bits. You want to go 6 to 12 inches down, so you're in the root zone.
Okay.
You want to mix those all together, well mixed, so that what you're doing is getting sort of an overall picture of your garden. You're going to dry it, not in the oven. Just set it out like on newspaper and let it air dry.
Okay.
When it's nice and dry, you're going to take 1 cup, put it in a Ziploc baggie, and mail that off with your application, your check.
So we have those results?
Assuming that we're starting a new garden and that this isn't an existing garden, it's very likely to look something like this. It's going to be a lawn.
Grassy.
What we need to do in order to have a garden where there used to be a lawn is we need to kill the lawn.
Okay.
And there are a couple ways to do that. One of them is a lot of work, and one of them is a lot less work. So we're going to talk about the way that's a lot less work.
That sounds good to me.
The first thing I would do is I would mow it.
Okay.
So that the grass is all cut short and any weeds are cut short. And we just want to loosen the soil up a little bit. This fork is 12 inches deep. Most pitchforks are about 12 inches deep. So it's going to tell you at least, if you can get it in the ground all the way, if you've got 12 inches of soil to work with.
Okay.
The other thing this does is it sort of loosens the soil that we're going to be planting in next spring. All right, so once we have the soil loosened up, we're going to put down a little bit of nitrogen fertilizer on this. Nitrogen is one of the main nutrients used by the microorganisms. We're going to break down this grass as it dies and starts to rot.
So it needs air and nitrogen.
That's right.
Okay.
This grass is made up of a lot of nitrogen, so as it dies, it's going to be releasing a lot of nitrogen that the organisms can use.
Okay.
We're adding some nitrogen just to speed up the whole process. I don't like to use synthetic fertilizers, so you're going to need to find an organic source of nitrogen. The best source of organic nitrogen is blood meal, which is dried blood from slaughterhouses. If you don't want to use dried blood, there are various meals, something like this, cottonseed meal or alfalfa meal, soybean meal. These are all plant-based sources of nitrogen. Blood meal just happens to be entirely nitrogen. So we're going to sprinkle this on here. Once we have the soil loosened and fertilized, we're going to smother it.
Okay, and this is to get rid of the light.
This is to get rid of the light. So what we're going to do is we're going to take newspaper. And we're going to open these sections up, and we want to put the newspaper down very, very thick, like at least 5 layers thick. So a small section I would just put down whole.
Flat.
If you have a particularly thick section, you can open it up into the middle.
And you want to be sure they're overlapping.
We don't want any gaps.
So does it matter what part of the newspaper we use for this process?
Yes. We don't want to use any of the glossy sections of the newspaper. The glossy sections have a lot of heavy metals in the dyes, which are toxic to humans. So we don't. You can be using the newsprint sections.
So the colored pictures are okay. It's just
it's really the glossy sections. If there was a section of paper that had lots of big full-page color ads,
like the comics,
I'd leave that out. The comics I would leave out. But it's really the glossies are the worst. You could also do this with some other materials. We've done this before with cardboard. This is going to break down. So whatever you use, you want to make sure that it will be gone. You don't want to use anything that's synthetic or petroleum-based. Now, we're going to water it here.
Why are we watering?
The water does 2 things. First, it's going to keep our newspaper from blowing away. If you do this with newspaper,
on a windy day.
Today is very calm. We're really lucky. I've done this on large sites on windy days, and we have to be spraying every 3 sheets because it'll blow away otherwise. But also, just like in a compost pile, you want to be keeping you want a compost pile moist. This is essentially a compost pile in situ, and you want to keep it moist as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and compost now instead of in the spring, so that as the compost and the newspaper and the grass are all going to decompose, and we're going to have a really nice, rich, organic layer to plant into next spring.
Great.
I encourage anytime you can to use things that are approved for organic use, because the federal government does make sure that we're using the best ingredients in organics.
Great. And all of this will be coming up into our food?
Anything you put into your garden is going to be in your food. We just used about 2.5 bags for 4 square feet. So that can start to add up in price.
Yes.
If you don't want to buy your compost, the other option for compost is making your own. Most cities have programs where you can buy a composting bin through your town for a discounted price.
Yep.
And you can make your own compost in your backyard. Most people have leaves that they collect every fall, and either they or their landscaping crew typically put them out or take them off site to get rid of. Instead of doing that, you can save those leaves, you can mix them with your grass clippings and your kitchen scraps, and you can make your own compost. This is the source of all the fertility of your soil, which is the source of the fertility of your plants and ultimately your own health. So making compost is a really important practice for home gardeners.
Great.
We're going to be mulching with straw. Now, it's very important, if you are going to go buy this, that you order straw and not hay.
Why is that?
Hay still has the seed heads on it. Hay is feed for horses, so it has all the protein, which is in the head of the seed head. Straw has been threshed, so the grain is gone. So next spring, if you're planting transplants, like you buy tomato seedlings at here or some other place, you could actually just part this straw
and plant right
into there, and then push the straw back around it, and you'd have a nice, well mulched planted garden right away. Now, if you want to grow something like lettuce, which people more traditionally grow from seed, you can just rake the straw back, and you can store it to mulch your tomatoes or your eggplants or something, or you can just add this to your leaf pile to put in your compost. So here we go. This plot is ready for the spring.
Okay.
Once spring comes, like I said, we would rake this mulch off, and we would have a bed that's ready to plant. The grass would be killed, the soil would be nicely fertilized. We would probably want to go in there with a pitchfork again and just loosen it so the soil is nice and loose, and we'd be ready to plant.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Greg, and for talking with us and showing us how to prepare our own backyard vegetable garden. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.